Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
7:06 on this Friday morning in your nation's capital, and it's O'Connor and Company serving the community with so many candidates running in Northern Virginia in this election, which culminates this upcoming Tuesday. That's right. It's the Friday before Election Day, and we are informing you and educating you and making you an informed voter with candidates across the board. And also this hour, we'll speak with Julie Donaldson to get a preview of the Commanders game against the Patriots. And in the next hour, we'll check in with Brett Baer of Fox News Channel. Are you ready, Patrice Onwuka?
I am ready. And by the way, I think tomorrow is the last day for early voting in Virginia.
That's right. Well said.
Yeah.
That's correct. And if you are going to show up at the polling place, either for early voting or on Election Day itself, print out that sample ballot. Go to your party's website and see who they're endorsing at the county level. And you'll know exactly who you need to vote for. All right, joining us now is Chris Harnisch, running in the 27th District for House of Delegates. It's Chris4VA.com. That's the number 4. And you're running against Atusa Reeser, who gets a lot of publicity based on her, political positions, let's say. She's incredibly active on behalf of her party and the advocates that control the messaging. So, Chris, thanks for joining us, and thanks for jumping into the race.
Hey, absolutely, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. And look, like you said, Larry, it's the last Friday before the election, and we're out here in Eastern Loudoun right now. We're sprinting hard to next Tuesday to deliver a victory for everybody. And look, I've been at the polls for the past 2 weeks at the early voting polls, and our message is resonating.
Yep.
We've had a number of Republicans show up. Yesterday, in particular, we had record numbers and a lot of Republicans. So, feeling very optimistic, but definitely we just need people to show up and vote. If people show up and vote, we're going to win this thing. Our message is resonating. And the other thing I'll tell you guys is that we've had so many Democrats who have told us, hey, Chris, and by the way, I've knocked on almost 8,000 doors, so it's not just at the polls where I'm hearing this. I've heard this at the doors as well. Democrats are telling me, hey, Chris, the pendulum has swung so far to the left that I've voted Democrat my entire life, but I'm voting Republican. So we can do this. We need people to show up.
That's great to hear. And I got to ask you real fast, since you're knocking on so many of those doors, in the last couple of days, you must be hearing a lot about these fentanyl overdoses right there in your neighborhood, and the fact that the elected officials have tried to keep this information from the public, from the parents.
Look, Larry, look, I'm going to tell you what you know, what all your listeners know, is that the Loudoun County School Board, they have a culture of cover-ups. So for the past 4 years, my opponent has been on the Loudoun County School Board, and there is this pervasive culture of cover-ups. And we have every indication to believe that the school board has known about these fentanyl overdoses since at least September. And yet just yesterday, I issued a FOIA request for all email exchanges between school officials and school board members asking for the emails related to their knowledge of the drug overdoses. So we have every reason to believe that for a while.
Before I hand it off to Patrice, I just want to be clear that everybody understands. When you say they knew and they covered it up and they didn't, you're talking about your opponent. She wants a promotion. She's using the school board as a stepping stone to now get to the House of Delegates, and she wants to be rewarded for participating in the Loudoun County School Board.
That's right, Larry. I mean, so she has a record of 4 years on school board. She has a record of mismanagement, irresponsibility, and cover-ups. She was one of the school board members who voted to give Dr. Ziegler a raise after Ziegler she knew Ziegler had covered up a sexual assault, and then she still voted to give Ziegler a $28,000 raise. So he was making $320,000 a year, which I've never made $320,000 a year, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners haven't. But Dr. Ziegler, who covered up a sexual assault in Loudoun County schools, was making $323,000 a year after he covered up that sexual assault, and my opponent voted to give him that pay raise. And now to your question, Larry, and now there's a lot of indications that they've also known about these fentanyl overdoses for some time, and parents have not been told. Now, I don't want to necessarily criticize the principal of Parkview High School. My understanding is that the principal may have, the principal may have given indication to parents or some of the parents at that one school, and we're still trying to get information on that. But what is clear is that the school system, the school board, they knew about these overdoses, and the rest of the parents in Loudoun County Schools did not.
They were kept in the dark. Chris,
right.
You laid out a very good case why your opponent should be defeated, but give us a little bit of color and background on yourself. You have served our country in a number of ways, and based on your savvy, political savvy, FOIA requests, sounds like you know how to operate a system, and that's what we kind of need. That's what the county would need as a fighter. So talk about your background.
Yeah, look, I'm a public servant, Patrice. I'm an Army veteran. I've been in the Army Reserves and Army for the past almost 15 years now. I've been saying 14 years because when I started the campaign, it was 14 years, but now it's almost 15. These are long campaigns. And also served as a counterterrorism official at the State Department and on the National Security Council. So I have a strong national security background and have a business background as well. I've worked in the tech industry and worked doing some tech consulting. But look, I ultimately decided to run after my son was born. We've got a 1-year-old now, and my wife and I were thinking about his future. Yeah. And we're concerned about his future, and it becomes very real when you have a son, right? Like I said, I've always been involved in public service, but when you have a child, you start thinking about their future, and the direction that our country is headed in becomes the potential implications of that become concerning. And so we talked about, what do we do about this? Should we get involved? And my wife and I collectively decided that we'd step up and try to do something about it. Now, I'll tell you that the other thing why I decided to step up, I am concerned that for the first time in our country's history, going back to probably the Civil War, that we're on the verge of handing off a country to our children worse than what we inherited, and that's a daunting statement. But we have a great tradition in this country of always striving generation after generation to form a more perfect union, but right now we're not. And we're ready to hand off a country to our children worse than we inherited. So I decided to step up and get involved. And look, this is a tough place for a Republican to run. Northern Virginia is not easy for a Republican to run, but I will say that our message and our values are resonating right now.
Well, and I got to imagine affordability is one of those messages, and that must be resonating. What is one concrete policy change that you can implement once you get into office to help with the affordability crisis right now?
Well, we've got a lot of ideas, we've got a lot of plans, but the number one thing I think we would do is number one issue that or policy that we pursue is to finally get rid of the car tax. So we hear people complain about the car tax all the time, and maybe it was because I was knocking on doors in September and October, and people just got that surprise bill in the mail. But that's what they tell me is that no one likes taxes, but they really don't like these surprise taxes, and you're not thinking about this. You think you pay your taxes in April, and then you get this, some cases more than $1,000 bill in the mail for a car tax. So I'd like to deliver permanent tax relief, including on the car tax, and let Virginians keep more of their hard-earned money.
All right, Chris Harnisch. It's Chris, the number 4 VA.com, running for House of Delegates, 27th District. Again, I like talking about you, Chris, but your opponent wants a promotion. Your opponent was there at the school board as all of it was going down. She was on the wrong side of every issue, and now she wants to be a member of the House of Delegates. This is a clear message that needs to be sent to the establishment. Chris, good luck on Election Day. Thanks for joining us.
Good luck, Chris.
Take care, guys. Have a great weekend.
WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
And we turn now, Patrice, to Matt Lang, Republican candidate for State Senate in District 38. It's Lang for VA.com. All right, Matt, good to talk with you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Larry, Patrice. How you guys doing this morning?
Good, thanks.
Good.
You're running against Democrat Jennifer Boysko, and real fast, just give everybody a quick thumbnail of this district, District 38, since there has been a bit of a redraw of the lines.
So since the redraw, District 38 is predominantly all of McLean, a little bit of Vienna, like the Wolf Trap section in the northwest, Great Falls, Reston, Herndon, and a small piece of Oakton.
Yeah, a beautiful part of Northern Virginia, by the way, so not a bad district to be running to represent. Why is it time for the voters in that area to shift and move toward Matt Lang's direction?
You know, we spent the entire season knocking doors and talking to people from, Cambridge Road right out of D.C. all the way out to Dulles Airport. And from what I've been hearing, and I'm not just knocking on safe doors and talking to the echo chambers. I'm out meeting independents, soft Democrats, and they just want to see some change. I think for a long time, there's been a lot of these areas in Northern Virginia where we haven't run Republican candidates, and it's been the same old same. And there's, a lot of things that have been changing. Schools, whether your issues are schools, whether it's crime issues, whether it's the economy. People are upset. At the same time, we were asking them, well, who's your representatives? Who do you guys keep electing? If you're complaining about what's going on here, look at who you have in Fairfax County representing you, who's bringing your ideas down to Richmond. These are the ones you should be putting the responsibility on. And if you're not happy with what you have, vote for change, right? I mean, I know it's a cliche thing to say, but, vote for change, but do it. I mean, if you're not happy with what you're seeing in your schools, whether you've been a victim or someone's been a victim of a crime, you got to find somebody else. And like I said, I find that in a lot of places in Fairfax and Northern Virginia in general, people may have given up on running candidates in certain districts thinking they weren't going to be worth the wait because of the shifts in voters. But I think it's important that, Republicans still step up, run these hard districts and still make themselves heard and give people options, someone to vote for should they're ready for making that change. And I think that's where we are right now. I've got a lot of great responses, like I said, not just from Republican supporters, but from independents and soft Democrats as well, that we may not agree on everything, but we'll find something in common somewhere.
So, Matt, talking about you're running as a Republican to bring some change, but you're also running with some experience, particularly when it comes to crime. And I've got to believe that that's one of those top issues you've been hearing about. You're a former sheriff's deputy. Talk to us about what needs to be done from a law enforcement and a perspective to deal with some of the crime issues.
That's kind of what got me into politics a few years ago during the 2021 cycle. Was that I was watching what's going on in the entire country, against the police, the knee-jerk reaction to changing a lot of laws, which I think we've seen 2 years later wasn't the best course of action. And that's why I decided to step up. I may not be able to push a cruiser anymore, but at the same time, I can make some changes in the House in the House and the Senate. And just seeing what here in Fairfax County, like I said, that's where my entire district lies. I spend most of my time just watching what's going on here. You're not seeing the same confidence in the system that you saw before. Yeah. People still support the police. At the same time, they're not confident that whenever something happens, that justice will be served all the way through. Yes, the police officer will make the arrest unless they change a law that prohibits them from taking action on it. They're still going to do their job. At the same time, when it gets to the courts, it's being dropped or charges are being reduced or people being cut loose. And I think that, as a legislator, you can hold your Commonwealth Attorney's Office a little more accountable by passing legislation that would do so, allowing the Attorney General to still follow through on their actions and not be have their hands tied whenever they need to take action on somebody.
We're speaking with Matthew Lang, I believe is how it'll appear on the ballot. He's running for state senate. We're against Jennifer Boysko, and I just want to be clear here, because I see this happen every time there's an election cycle. You look at Jennifer Boysko, she said, I'm running on spending and on transportation issues and, education. But when she gets into office, I'm looking at a post she put on social media, January 21st, 2020, right before the pandemic. So, this was her priority before the lockdown. She's bragging about passing bills, including SB 161. She says, we passed 3 of my bills. This was her bill. She authored it. SB 161, direct schools in Virginia to allow biological males to use the girls' facilities. She spearheaded that effort. You want to know why we have this mess right now in our schools? It's Jennifer Boysko. Matt Lang, will you be able to address this should you win this seat and reverse this?
I've been addressing this since day one, and I tell people, especially since the redraw of the district, the fact no one knows who her name is because she's not one of the more vocal people. She's not in the media as often as some of the other people are, but she does introduce these bills that cause all this controversy. And I always tell people, you may not know her by name, but you know her by her work. And I said, everything you see in the news the past 2 years in Loudoun County, Fairfax County, has been because of that bill, SB 161. You nailed it right on the head, Larry. And, you know, when people hear that, they're like, oh, it's that aha moment. She's the one. I'm like,
she's the one.
That's the one.
She is the one. She's patient X. Patient X in endangering girls in Virginia when they need protection and they need safe places. Thank you so much, Matt Lang, for running. Good luck with the election. I know it's been a real sprint here to the final day, and thanks for carving out some time to be with us.
Nope, we're in to win it until the last minute.
I like it.
Now
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:36. It's O'Connor and Company. Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice on WUCA. Patrice, how you doing?
Happy
you holding
Friday.
up?
I am. I'm making it.
It is a happy Friday, and we are candidate central right now because it's the last Friday before the election. Also coming up in 10 minutes, Julie Donaldson will tell us how the Commanders are going to beat your Patriots, Patrice.
We will see because both of their records are in the toilet right now.
Well,
so.
This is a chance for both teams to turn it around, right?
Okay,
And then
maybe.
coming up at 8:35, Brett Baer, Fox News Channel. Let's now turn to Prince William County. Matt Lowery running for Prince William County Commonwealth Attorney. And, no better time than now, Mr. Lowery, because violent crime, according to Chief Newsom, and I don't think it's his fault, violent crime is up 70% in Prince William County. Violent crime. We're talking murder, manslaughter, rape, sodomy, robbery. And your opponent, the current Commonwealth's attorney, rather than address that issue, she seems to be in denial. She thinks the stats aren't right. That's not a solution, is it?
No, she's routinely gone out in public and said, "Oh, don't believe those stats. Those are the imagination, or those are figments of the imagination of the crazy right wing." And I don't think she's ever been on the streets in Woodbridge. That's my town, and the place is literally on fire. So, she needs to be replaced immediately. That's a large part of why I'm running.
Well, talk to us about, some of the reforms you want to see implemented, because obviously this idea that prosecutors, what crimes are prosecuted, has nothing to do with the kind of crimes we're seeing, the spike in crime we're seeing. That I don't think any voter believes that, but that's the line that your opponent and others from her camp seem to be pushing. What would you like to do differently?
Well, the first thing is that we had a debate where my opponent said that she can't do anything to control the crime rate, which is just ludicrous and silly. The Commonwealth's attorney is the chief of law enforcement in the county. And in Prince William, it's for the county and the city of Manassas and the city of Manassas Park. And the Commonwealth's attorney drives crime policy, and that includes criminal deterrence. So you have to operate a prosecution office that deters crime, and hers doesn't. So one of the changes that I'd make is we get back to a deterrence posture in prosecution, which means we have to uphold the law, which they're not doing now.
And Prince William County is sort of, you tell me, Matt Lowery, but excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, Matt Lowery. We had two Matts back to back here. I want to make sure I got the right Matt. It seems like Prince William County is at a tipping point right now. People moved to Prince William because they didn't like living in D.C. They didn't like living in Fairfax County. They had a bit more of a rural, suburban sanctuary, and you've had so much growth there that this is the point where the people of that county need to make a choice about what direction to go, because if they choose wrong this time, it's going to be that much more harder to turn back.
No, I think that's right. I've lived in the county for almost 40 years. When I got here, there were about 100,000 people in here in Prince William, and now there's approaching 600,000. It's been explosive growth the entire time I've been here. And I think this cycle represents probably the last chance to keep the character of the county like it once was and avoid changing into something more like a Prince George's model rather than a more suburban model.
Now, you're a criminal defense attorney, and I'll be honest, sometimes I'm wary of a defense attorney in the position of Commonwealth's attorney. I want someone who knows how to put people in jail, not keep them out. Tell me about your record and how it matches up against your opponent.
Well, my principal career for most of the 25 years I've been a lawyer has been to be a prosecutor. So I'm a very
Forgive me. I saw you
prosecutor.
described as a defense attorney. I apologize.
Yeah, that's what my opponents say when they keep forgetting that I spent a long time as an award-winning prosecutor in Virginia. I worked in Paul Ebert's office when he was the Commonwealth Attorney in Prince William. He was the Commonwealth Attorney here for almost 50 years, a Democrat. He's endorsed my campaign. When I was my first career in public service was as a firefighter, and that inspired me into the law, and I became a lawyer to be a prosecutor, and I did that for almost 2 decades. So I'm very experienced at that. I've also been a supervisor and manager of prosecutors in large offices and small. I was Deputy Commonwealth Attorney in Fairfax for a time, and I was Deputy Commonwealth Attorney in Spotsylvania for a long time. And so I'm very well prepared to do this job. And to call me a defense attorney, yes, that's what I'm doing this second. But hopefully after Tuesday, I won't be doing that anymore ever.
Absolutely. And I think the county needs it. I mean, the stats here are just alarming. In 2023, this year, the county is on pace to be the deadliest year. When you look at 8 homicides in 2020 and 29 projected in 2023, I mean, I can't help but think that, you know, there's got to be something that has been done differently that can be undone. Is there something that can be undone to reduce the number of homicides? And you started talking about it when I asked you earlier, but I would love for you to expand more, particularly when it comes to just the homicides in the county.
Sure. It's a 2-pronged problem, really, and it's both of them have to do with having competent public policy in place. The first prong of the problem is we've had law changes in Virginia that have made it much harder to effectively prosecute people who pose a risk to public safety. Most of those have come in the form of lightening up criminal laws and in the form of expanding bail reforms that were already quite expansive. So the net result of that has been that people who normally should be in jail or who should be in prison are now out in public. And so that leads to a situation where more crime happens. That's why you see the rise in the overall crime rate and the violent crime rate.
Funny how that works. You keep criminals on the street instead of behind bars, and crime tends to get worse. Wow. All right, you're going places, Matt. All right.
There's a secondary problem, too, which is like if you have a prosecutor who says out loud that they don't want to deal with small crime, that's fine and all, but people who are willing to do violent crime, people who are willing to do big crime also do small crime. And so when you miss the opportunity to take them off for small crimes, you leave somebody out who is willing to do a large crime, and that's a big problem that nobody's addressing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of work to do here, but these are the kind of easy reforms, and it just means putting in place competent public policy, competent prosecution strategies, and things should get back to normal really quickly.
That's good.
Homicides in Prince William County have doubled in 2022 and now on pace in 23 to be the deadliest year on record, and the Commonwealth's attorney wants 4 more years. You do have an option, Prince William County. It's Matt Lowery. And Matt, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you for having me again. It's always been a pleasure to be on your show, sir.
All right, now we shift our focus to another campaign, the ground campaign. Well, maybe an air campaign as well. The Commanders taking on the Patriots, 2 teams that desperately need a victory. Julie Donaldson, part of the Ace broadcast team there in the booth. What do you think, Julie?
It's going to look a lot different on defense is what I know.
Well, that's for sure. Two big trades this week.
Yeah, huge. And defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio said when they selected Chase Young second overall, not too long ago, nobody envisioned this is how the result would be. Also, Montez Sweat was a former first-rounder as well. But looks like new ownership is saying, you know, we need to build for the future, and that means they need the right picks. And you knew you were not going to be able to keep them both, especially with Deron Payne and John Allen getting big contracts. So we'll move forward, and we'll see what Casey Toohill has and James Smith-Williams as they step up and the rookies getting their call out there. And Mac Jones, the quarterback for Bill Belichick, is definitely no Tom Brady. He's struggling. So we'll see just how this D-line adjusts to the changes.
To the trades, though, I mean, would fans be forgiven if they saw that those moves this week as sort of an acknowledgement that this year ain't the year, but we're trying to set up for next year and the years beyond?
Yeah, I mean, look, at 3-5, this team is underperformed. They believe they have more talent, and certainly when you had Chase and Montez as well, they have more talent than what they've been performing at. So, you know, can you shoot for a wild card spot? There's a lot of football left to be played. Yeah, there is. But also, you know, Josh Harris has been very clear. He's playing the long game. and to play the long game, this was apparently one of those first moves to be able to do that. So it's a very frustrating year for a lot of folks. I think they anticipated this team being in a very different conversation, but you are what the record says you are, and they're 3-5.
Well, Julie, they're still better than the Patriots right now, and I'm a Pats fan, so I know about frustrating considering we've had such a wonderful legacy for many years. But that said, you said quarterback Mac Jones is no Tom Brady, and that is for sure. And I think we've seen that he has not been throwing the ball down the field. I think the offensive line has been pretty weak. So considering how Sam Howell did last Sunday against the Eagles for 3 quarters, do you think that's going to set? You think the Pats are going to be on the ropes pretty much all on Sunday's game?
You never know when you're going up against Bill Belichick. This is not the team that we're used to seeing, and of course the quarterback with their struggles. But their defense is going to challenge you. They don't roll over at all. And Belichick's really good at exposing your weaknesses and taking away your strengths. So, you can sit there and say 2-6 and 3-5. It's 2 teams that, who's going to win out. It is home field for Foxborough. Asked Coach Rivera about that. Do you change your approach? He said no, but it's a turf, not grass, and that has a certain amount of an impact. I don't really know what to expect in games like this. It's like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. There's times where we see how hard Washington plays the Eagles, and then you see what they did to the Giants, and they just made the Giants look like a really great team, and they're not. So it's one of those seasons.
Julie, after that Giants game, it looked like coming out against the Eagles last week that they designed plays to get Sam Howell mobile and get rid of the ball quickly, and it seemed to work. He had a pretty solid game for the most part. Is that sort of how they're approaching Sam Howell now? That the longer he stays there, the greater danger they have either to him eating the ball in a sack or, even worse, throwing an interception?
I even talked to him yesterday about that and just kind of how the game plan went. So that's what we need to be successful. Are those quick passes? Is the screen game? Ways to make him be able to get the ball out of his hand fast instead of sitting back and, dropping back, every single time. And Eric Bieniemy wants the big plays, and everybody loves the big plays. But I think we've seen that this team isn't quite there yet. And in order to have the big plays, you've got to be able to stay on the field and execute. So getting that ball quickly, yes. Moving him around. Tyler Larson also under center, I think, really helped. He's a good communicator. He recognized things very quickly, and that's not really a knock against Nick Gates. It's just Larson is getting those calls out faster on where things are coming. So I think we saw last week what this offense and the identity wants to be that they need to build on in order to give Sam a fighting chance and be successful, because the amount of hits he was taking, it's just not sustainable. It's just really not. At one point, one hit, you're having a different conversation, and nobody wants to have that.
Julie Donaldson, part of the broadcast team there for the Washington Commanders, heading up to play the New England Patriots, 1 p.m. this Sunday. Thanks, Julie. Let's get